Hello and welcome to another episode of the M42 Adventures Podcast. I am your host, Rick Trimmer, and today we have one that's kind of unique. Most of our guests have been, and not to say that this guy isn't, but most of them I've searched for have been outdoor enthusiasts. You know, surfers, hunters, UTV guys. All these different facets of what we're going to be having within our company. And this one came up in a different way. So one of the, inside our Genesis, our online community that we started a month ago. So if you're not in that, little plug there, go join the Genesis. We've got 53 people in there so far, and it is growing. It's 6 weeks old, doing a lot of cool things in there. But in there, we have 4 pillars, which are basically family and relationships, your fitness, your finances, and your spirituality and your faith. You know, without those core pillars, then, life's hard. If your relationships are bad, you're sad, you're alone. If you're out of shape, you don't have the energy to go hiking and get outside and play with your kids. And so we work a lot on those as well. That's kind of something that people don't understand, that M42 Adventures is adventures. It is getting on these live experiences, going to Africa, going to Costa Rica, going to Alaska, all these things we have planned for 2025, but also we're working on those 4 core with people. And so I'm actually teaching the financial channel inside of the Genesis. And so this gentleman, I've known him for years. He's an avid triathlon, marathon runner. You can see from the video, in great shape. And so he has that, adventure and lifestyle. But the way that we started talking, and he just went through a divorce. And he's got 7 kids, been married almost 20 years. And I'm seeing, I don't know if it's my age, and so more of my friends are going through this, or if I'm just paying attention more. I have no idea, but it seems rampant. Divorce and what people are going through. And so I asked him to come on and talk about that. So we talked for 15, 20 minutes about his, future, or not his future, his triathlon and what he's done. And then we got into his marriage and stuff like that. So I'm excited for you to hear this one. I recorded it yesterday, was unable to do the intro then, got busy. And so I'm doing it today, but this one really affected me. And I'm excited for you to jump into this. So this is Jesse Callahan, and good friend of mine from high school, just a good person. And I'm excited for you to hear this one. Stay tuned. Yeah, man, I appreciate you coming down here. We've been trying to meet up for a couple weeks now. You're a busy
I'm excited.
Guy. Yeah. So we've known each other. How long? I was thinking about that. We went to high school together.
Yeah.
We didn't hang out much though.
No, but we went to high school, and then years later we were in the same neighborhood for a while.
Yep.
And then about 5 or 6 years ago, you contacted me to come, kind of partner up with Design Concepts and do some work for you that way. Yep. So we've had that relationship for several years that way.
Yeah, you've been painting. You had a cabinet company, right? Green Valley.
Yep.
Is that what it was?
With my dad. Yep.
And then recession hit us all.
Yep.
Wiped us all out, including me, and built back. And now you're kind of doing your thing on painting, right? That's what you kind of specialize in.
Yeah, and I did that for 10 years, and then I got bored of it, and so I got back into building cabinets. So I kind of do that too, in addition to doing the painting for you and other people. I do cabinets again.
Okay. So, yeah, man, I wanted to have you on. We were actually just ran into each other in the hall here. You were here to pick up a check.
Yeah, yep.
And I know a little bit about what you've been going through with your divorce.
Right.
And, obviously M42, it's, people automatically kind of associate it with a hunting brand.
Okay.
I do a lot of hunting. It's a passion of mine. And so that's what a few of our experiences have been. We went to Africa last year, Alaska, Hawaii. This coming year, we've got some different ones coming up that are like surfing in Costa Rica and some stuff like that. But you have always been kind of not an extreme athlete. I don't know what you call it, but I mean, I remember you running marathons all the time and training. Every time I saw you, you were getting ready to do some I mean, have you done Ironmans?
Yeah, several of them. Yep.
Oh, have you?
Yep.
So that's something that how did you get into that? When did you start doing that?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you remember what it was like in high school, but when I was 14 years old, my dad, he woke me up at 4 a.m. every morning, and I hated it for years. For a couple of years, I hated it. But he took me to the gym to lift weights, and as a young teenager, you want to sleep. And so it was rough. But once I started seeing some results, it was awesome to have starting to see some muscles and stuff. And so then it switched to where I was getting him up out of bed, and
interesting,
all the way until I was 19 and went on a mission. Like, him and I lifted weights every morning, 6 days a week.
No kidding.
So that was kind of my background in weightlifting.
So he was passionate about it? He
did. He was there every morning with me.
Was he a high school athlete? I mean, what was his passion? What got
he was a football star, running back for Dixie High School, and put a little college ball at Dixie College and stuff. But after getting married, life changes and stuff, and you get busy with work, and so I started getting heavier and out of shape, and I was still doing some weightlifting, but I just got fat, bottom line. And it was, I'd volunteered for the St. George Marathon every year, and I'd always wanted to do it, but I would always be I was too heavy. There's no way I could run 26 miles. I was never used to running.
So you were never a runner?
No.
No,
I was never a runner or anything like that. I just was a weightlifter and football player and stuff like that. And so every year, it was 5 or 6 years in a row, I was like, one day I want to do the marathon. One day I want to do the marathon. But nothing inspired me enough to actually train and lose weight and stuff until in 2000, I believe it was 10, Ironman came to St. George. And our neighborhood put together an aid station, and we were volunteering on Bluff Street. And I just remember being out there, seeing all these athletes come in on their bikes. And I was so inspired. I was like, oh, this is crazy. Swimming 2.4 miles, biking 112, running 26.2.
Insane. And
so I had never even had the courage to do a marathon up to that point. But at that moment, I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do an Ironman.
Okay.
And so
jump all in.
That night I went home and signed up, and for the full Ironman the next year. I didn't own a bike. I didn't really know how to swim other than just play in the pool with your friends. And I never ran more than 3 miles.
Wow,
some
cool.
sprints in football, but it was never long distance running. And so I jumped in full blast, not knowing what I was getting into. And that year of training, it was funny because I remember there was a St. George triathlon that was just a short distance one, 2 weeks after I'd signed up. But I still hadn't had any training. I was just getting ready to do this, right?
Yeah.
My sister-in-law, Sean Seifus, calls me up and she says, hey, there's a little triathlon. Do you want to do it this weekend? And I was like, well, if I'm in it, I'm in it. So let's go do it. And she met me the day before the triathlon at the Washington Rec Center at the pool. And she said, just swim down to the other end and back. I want to see your stroke, because she's a collegiate swimmer. Uh-huh. And so I swim down there, and it's pitiful, right? Head out of the water.
Yeah.
There's nothing fancy about it.
Yeah.
And her response, still to this day, made me laugh. She says, "That's your stroke?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah. What's wrong with it?" She's like, "You're gonna die." And so she's like, "Let me teach you this butterfly or this frog stroke to if you're gonna die and you're out there in the water, how to not drown."
Literally die.
So she taught me that, and
that's funny. I was at the gym. I was over here at Summit, and I got way into swimming. It was a couple years ago, but it's so healthy for you. It's easy on the joints. And again, I was overweight, and so I started swimming. And there was a guy next to me who was, doing all these fancy things tucking the pad between his knees and stuff. And
all the drills.
Yeah, and he's fit. And I'm one of those guys that I encourage everybody, find somebody doing what you want to do and talk to them.
Yeah.
Mentors or people love to share. And so I grabbed him. I says, "Hey man, can you give me some pointers? I'm just trying to figure out how many. I want to lose weight. That's what I want to do. How many calories do you burn swimming? I can't find anything online because it's your size." And he's the same thing. He says, "Well, swim down and back and let me watch you." And I did my thing, come back, and he says, "I'm going to be as gentle as I can, but the way you're swimming, you're probably going to burn like 4 times the calories that I'm burning doing the same stroke, because your head's out of water, you're dragging, you know, you're not kicking your feet enough, and I didn't realize that, you know, I didn't think about it. I mean, I knew you're faster, but I didn't think about I'm burning 4 times the energy doing the same thing because of my technique and like you're saying. So I'm sure when you get into a triathlon and you're trying to swim a couple miles in open water, it can get dangerous. You get a side cramp or something. You can't grab the side and rest.
Yeah.
So
it gets tricky.
And that's interesting, you know, because I think, again, M42 Adventures, you don't know a lot about it. We haven't had any conversations, but basically it's trying to get people outside in any aspect, you know, mountain biking, golf, you know, hunting, fishing, triathlons. But I actually went down to San Diego this weekend and I had a buddy down there, and he says, I want to see some like content of people that you've taken. You know, we just went to Africa. We took 21 people. Several of them have never hunted before. They've never been in a helicopter before. They've never traveled outside the U.S. before. And it was a thing that I missed because this is new to me, but I didn't film it. I didn't document them showing up, and they're nervous, you know, and they're shooting the gun for the first time. Never shot a gun. You know, we had a couple kids there and a wife that had never pulled a trigger that are now going to go hunting. And I'm like, I wish I would have got some more commentary on that, because most people are not like you. They don't dare look like a fool. They just kind of stay in your lane, it seems like, or even danger. So I love the fact that that's how it started for you. It wasn't, you know, I've been running my whole life, so I'm going to go run a marathon. It's like, I'm going to sign up and then I'm going to figure it out. And I love that. You know, I encourage people to be more like that, because it obviously changed your life. Yeah. I mean, it changed the trajectory of your life, those events, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because you get to a point too where it's hard to try to fit in all the stuff, swimming, biking, running. Cause now, like right now, I don't really like swimming. Mm-hmm. I like mountain biking more.
Oh, do you?
Than road biking. So it's kind of like switched over to that. Mm-hmm. I just had a conversation with my son who's on a mission in Bolivia right now. And he's like, Dad, I miss endurance sports. I want to do some with you when I come back from my mission. And I don't really have a desire right now to do an Ironman like in the next year or two, but I feel like if I keep my fitness level up with, you know, mountain biking and canyoneering, I like to do a lot of that stuff that when he comes back, it'll be able to, you know, flow right back into it with him. And
yeah, we had a guy on, Bryce Jones, and he was talking about that. He's done, I don't know about hundreds, but he's done a lot of these things. And he said the same thing. He's like, I'm bored.
100 medals
yeah.
in his office.
Yeah. I mean, he's done a ton of these, and he said kind of the same thing, you know, where his new thing is he's been running from the south rim of the Grand Canyon to the north and back in a day.
That's insane.
And he just did it with his 12-year-old son, like right after our podcast, and they went and did it. But it's like 12 hours or something. What did he say?
11 and a half hours.
And it's thousands of feet of elevation gain. And
have you ever done it? Have you ever hiked it one way?
No, I've gone down a little bit on the north rim, a few miles, and then back up. But yeah, I can't fathom. But he said that. He says, you know, I don't like being on the road. I don't like riding a bike down the road. I like being out in the dirt. And that's a big thing that's taking off right now. You know, Cam Haines, I don't know if you follow him, but, you know, I can see that pulling to me more than running down I-15 or, you know, running down the highway to go run around Beaver Mountain or in the dirt. And, you know, I think that would be something, mountain biking, you know, it's like, I don't want to go ride down the highway, but to be out in the woods, and I can see that being a bigger pull for me.
Well, here's something that just came to my mind that I think is a beautiful part of it. When you talked about this man taking it, Bryce Jones, that we said, taking his 12-year-old son. When we take our children and let them experience these activities that can be very strenuous, that can challenge us to the point where we're like, we're going to give up. We don't even know if we can do this. Some of the biggest like life lessons that they learn as children are the failures. So here's just a quick story that happened to me and Cooper, my oldest son. He wanted to do the Grand Canyon. He wanted to go there and back, and that's kind of like the first part of the story, which I won't get into that too much detail. But we had planned, you know, in his later teenage years to go do the Grand Canyon, and it got snowed out, and so we had to switch, and we went and did the Zion's Traverse, which was going to be 50-ish miles of backpacking, hiking, and him and I had all of our little aid stations set up, and we were going to go do this thing, and it was going to take however long it was going to take, and we started off and we were fueling properly and everything, and he's, I don't know, 16, 17 years old, and we got to a certain point where his body was shutting down, and it was getting to the point where it was dangerous, and we were at mile like 38, and I wanted to give him the chance to like, okay, we're out here in the middle of nowhere. What are you going to do to survive? Like, I know what I would do, but I want to see what you would do. And his response, after he thought about it for a minute, it made me laugh, but it worked. He said, Dad, what I want you to do is I want you to, like, we did have cell service, but we were 6 miles away from one checkpoint and 11 miles to the finish. And he said, I want you to call your dad, have him leave St. George with one of my bikes and bring it to Zion to this checkpoint. And then I want you to hike out and grab my bike. And then I want you to ride my bike back to me, and then I'll ride out of here, because his hiking legs weren't working very well, but he was a phenomenal cyclist and stuff. And so he figured, if I can get a bike, I can get out of here. So we did that, and sure enough, he was able to make it out. But I made sure he had food and water and warm enough clothes, because it was a little chilly that morning. And I left him there as I hiked out and rode the bike back to him. But we were able to get him out of there. And I remember seeing the rangers on the path, and they said, you can't ride bikes on this trail. And I said, here's the situation. Either you're going to pay a helicopter to go get my son off the mountain, or you can turn a blind eye and let me, ride my bike and get my son out, because we know we can get us out. And he's like, okay, just go ahead and do it.
Oh, that's cool.
So, but that experience, though, we didn't finish.
So many lessons.
Yeah, we didn't finish. But we had an amazing time together, enjoying nature and, like, trying to overcome obstacles. And then he went right back the next year with some of his cousins and friends and did the same thing way faster. You know what I mean? And so, like, but if you talk to him, he'll say that, like, some of those failures were some of the most memorable moments.
Oh, 100%. And I agree with that. Like we talked in the beginning of this, with the recession, the worst time of my life by far as financially and just trying to pick myself up off the floor. And I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Right.
Because it set the tone for how I save, how I value, going on a trip. I appreciate it more because I've been there where I couldn't. Going out to dinner, we couldn't go out to dinner for years. So like you said, when you hit those hard times, people often think this is a bad thing.
Right.
But and we're going to get into your divorce. That's one thing that's a big reason you're here, and that's why you wanted to come on here, and I think it's a very valuable thing that we talk about, because I know a lot of people going through that. But in those dark days, you can go left or right, and that's where I think if you pick yourself up and like you said, I was actually out elk hunting with my son like a week and a half ago, and we were trying to find the side-by-side. I'd shot an elk, got back to the side-by-side like at 11 o'clock at night. We're trying to find it, and I had it pinned, but the pin was off. Just a few hundred yards, but you're in the dark. My son's 12, his first ever hunt, wild game, besides Africa, but that's not the same. But up here in the Utah mountains, no cell service, and we walk up to where the side-by-side is, and it's not there. And I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, yeah, there's something. I'm like, my pin's off or something. We walk around for about 20 minutes, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, we have to be I says, it has to be here close. And my son starts panicking.
Yeah.
And I says, listen, it's okay. We got food. We got each other. We got matches. Like, this is where you have to overcome, the one of the biggest mistakes people make is they panic.
Yeah.
In those situations, your son, it's like, my legs aren't working, and then it starts spiraling downhill pretty quick. But if you can get into these bad situations, me financially, I could have panicked, and, my mind could have gone forever on what ifs. But if you can sit there and say, okay, this is real, this is what I'm capable of, this is what is reality, and just take a minute. And we sat there and took a minute and, said a little prayer, and hey, let's just kind of gather our bearings. And we walked around for another 15 minutes and stumbled on it. And he says, Dad, I was really scared. He says, I'm glad you're with me. And I says, that's, like you said, having the Father there And that knowledge of everything's going to be okay. We just got to process this. And like you said, I think that's a huge thing with taking your kids on these experiences and out into these environments where, they have to, that's our job, right? As a parent is to train them to be the best, a better version than us. And I think when you do put them in those kind of situations, it amplifies it
For sure.
so much, prepping, planning, all the things. And then, hey, we planned this out to the 10th degree and still shit goes wrong, And so now we gotta
improvise.
So that's cool, man. And so is, so you're thinking you're going to do that with your son later on then? You're going to...
Yeah, so like before he left, I mean, it was about a year and a half ago, I believe, we did a 24-hour mountain bike race.
Wow.
And that was funny, though, because like he's a lot better mountain biker than I ever am or was. And so it's just as many laps as you can do. It's like a 13-mile loop for 24 hours straight. Well, come nightfall, he kept going, and I actually drove home to St. Joseph out in Virgin. I drove home to get a full night's sleep in my bed, and then came back out the next morning at 5 a.m. to do a few more laps. And so he ended up getting like 60 or 70 miles more in than me.
That's nuts.
But that was, and I think he, slept in a little sleeping bag for a few hours to get a teeny bit of sleep. But so yeah, he loves endurance racing. I do too. It's just something that where you can push your mind and set goals and challenge your body. And
well, and the thing I like about it too that you don't really realize, because I've never been a weightlifter guy. I didn't play sports in high school. I rode motorcycles and snowboard and stuff like that, but not really something that I had to go train for. But my wife's pregnant right now. With our fourth child, little girl finally. Got the girl on the way, and we were down in San Diego this week, and I'm out there. We went to SeaWorld, and my little 3-year-old wanted to go up this rope course. And so I says, let's go, and I went up there and crawled through all the holes and did everything, and Gina says, when I got down, she says, that was cute. You were the only dad up there. All the other dads are down here, and I thought, I want to always stay active, and I think that's one thing about that's like a not a result, but that's like a benefit you get that people don't think about. Like if you can run a marathon, that's amazing. But how healthy are you to run the marathon? You can, you can probably water ski. You can, pick up your kids. You can jump on the trampoline, and that's what I am getting to where as you get older, we're the same age, right? 44, pretty close.
Yep.
That's what I respect is, people that are fit, they can play with their kids. They can go hunting. Yeah. They can go do all these other things that a lot of people who don't live that lifestyle. And it is a lifestyle.
Right.
That's the biggest thing that I've realized. I got up to like 265 a few years ago, and I'm like, I got to make some changes.
Yeah.
Because
we look good now.
Because we've lucked out, where our metabolism, I'm sure, you're the same way. For years, I didn't think about anything.
Right.
And then it catches up to you. And now I told Gina, says the worst part about this diet is it's not a diet. It's life. Like you have to just watch. I can throw down when I want to eat.
Right.
But yeah, man, I love all that. I wanted to jump into, so not the reason, but I know a big, it is probably the reason, I wanted to talk a little bit about your background and what you've done, as far as your adventures and stuff, but you just went through a divorce, right? It's finalized. Is it finalized?
Yep.
So, it's a different one. Again, M42 Adventures, we have our community, the Genesis, and inside of that, we have all these channels, to where there's a mountain biking channel, there's a triathlon channel, but there's also relationships, finances, fitness, and spirituality.
Okay, that's awesome.
Faith. I tell everybody, if those things aren't in order to some extent, if you're broke, you can't go on an adventure, you can't afford it.
Right.
If your family's falling apart, you're not going to want to go on an adventure. You're sad, if you're not in shape, you're not going to go on an adventure. You're out of shape. So, and we talked about this a little bit in the hall, but this is something that men don't talk about.
No.
I have several good friends, one in San Diego, that is in the middle of it right now. And we actually didn't even see him because we're friends with both of them. And we're trying to stay, neutral. and it's getting a little tense with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we actually we sent them a text and said, listen, this is affecting our marriage because we love both of you guys.
Right.
And we don't want to choose. But, and it's not that they want us to choose. They both say, well, I'm fine if you go see them. I'm fine if you go see them. But then we're like, okay, well, we're going to go see them at 5. And they're like, well, I thought we were going to hang out at 5, And it's like, whoa, they're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And it's understandable that that's consuming them. For us, it's not a big deal. Let's go down there. Let's hang out with them for a couple hours and move on. But for them, their reality is just changing.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to address that. I wanted to, if we can, and I know that's why you said if I can get on there.
Yeah.
And it's hard, this podcast for me in the beginning, I don't want to be a public figure. I don't want to, I'm actually trying to hire somebody to take over this aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love having the conversations, but I don't want any, I don't like it, and it's hard because you want to share your story and your struggles and all the things to help people. But at the same time, it's a little scary to open up, So I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you. I know you genuinely are on here. You're the same way. You're similar, where it's, we don't want to air out all our dirty laundry, but at the same time, we want to, if we can help some people, navigate divorce or avoid divorce, then that's what we're doing here.
Yeah. Perfect.
So were you married right out of high school? I didn't follow you. I mean, you've been married a while.
So yeah, I got married when I was 21 and married for 3 years and then divorced.
Okay. I didn't know that.
And then, to my first wife. And then, met my ex-wife.
That when you were just too young? I mean, just didn't know who you were, or what happened there? If you don't mind me asking. You can share as little or as much as you want.
I don't think we'll go into that one.
Okay.
Not because there's lots of context there, but I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
And then met my ex-wife, my second wife.
Okay.
Shortly after and married, and
she's from St. George.
Yep, St. George girl, and we had 7 kids together.
Okay, I couldn't remember if I knew it was a lot.
Yeah,
it was a big number.
Yeah,
I'm on number 4 and I'm a little nervous. So
yeah,
but that's the thing is everybody judges everybody, right?
Right.
I have so many friends. I'm like, dude, I'm having another baby, and they're like, you're 44. Like, what are you thinking? And I says, I'm financially stable. Don't have to work, so I have the time to play with them anytime I want.
Yeah.
And they're my world, It's like, that is my world. I was, I was at home last night and running around with my little 3-year-old and my, playing catch with my kids. Anyway.
Yeah. You have
like
time
that
now.
is my life.
Yeah.
And I see everybody that's older, and most of the people that are older with kids, their life is their kids.
Right.
My parents, they're sitting there waiting like, hey, Christmas, are you guys going to be here? Please come visit us. Hey, Thanksgiving, we got the cabin, in Pine Valley rented. Please come stay with us, So 7 just sounds better to me. It's obviously crazier and you got all that kind of stuff, but it's more full.
Yeah.
I just believe that.
Yeah, it is.
I started later, so I started at like 32. So it was, to get 4 in, it took me to 44.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 7 kids. Yeah. So that's a adventure in itself, right?
I remember when we had our third, that was harder than 4, 5, 6, and 7.
See, I've heard that. I've heard that it gets easier.
They start to play with each other.
Yeah.
And so they have like,
and the older ones
friends.
can kind of help watch the younger one. They got driver's licenses.
Yeah.
They can, that's what my wife, because she came to me, I was done.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm good. 3's good.
Gina wanted more.
Yeah. And she says, we were out traveling last year, and she says, hey, I think I want another one. And I'm like, what? What?
Oh my gosh.
For real? And she's like, no, I really think so. And I says, I don't know, babe. Like, my big thing was, I says, we have to get new cars. All of our cars seat 5 kids.
Right.
5 people. And I'm like, we have to get new vehicles, and I just don't know. And she says, you're looking at it wrong too, because Castle, my oldest, is 13.
Uh-huh.
She's like, in a couple of years, he's going to be driving. He can go help get groceries. He can, he can drive himself to football.
Yeah.
she's like, that one's gonna get easier, and then he can also help watch, the younger ones, and so, yeah, I'm kind of banking on that one that it's gonna get a little easier.
You guys
but
have a name picked out for this little girl?
We do. Yeah,
What do you name her?
it's even.
Okay, cute.
So her mom's name's Evelyn, so Evie, and then my mom's name's Jan.
Okay.
So we just combined them.
Well, we have our youngest daughter. Her name's Eve.
Oh,
she was
there
born
you
on
go.
Christmas Eve.
I love it.
So
Yeah,
named her
so
Eve,
close. Yeah.
It's cute.
That's what we said. We'll probably call her Eve or Evie or something, but just a little nickname. But yeah, so even, and due here in 2 months. So
That's
we're
awesome.
excited.
Congratulations.
Man. Yeah, I work. A little girl too. Not that it's it is. You want to say it doesn't matter, but it's like we're excited. That
Are your boys excited?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, we did our gender reveal in Africa.
Okay.
So we were in South Africa in August, and
So it wasn't just you. You took Gina and all the kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All 5 of us went. There
Awesome.
was 21 of us, and my kids, like I said, my story. They've been to 68 countries, and that's their favorite.
Yeah, Africa. Sweet.
Yeah, they got a hunt. So my 9-year-old shot a blessed buck. No, Gems buck.
Okay.
So that's his, 9 years old.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool. And then my older boy, Castle, he shot 3 animals.
Okay, cool.
And so, I'm one of those dads where I don't force them to do anything.
Right.
It's like,
Only
hey,
if they want to.
I encourage, and support, but, so they really enjoyed it. They
That's
loved
awesome.
that. My mom and dad went, so grandma and grandpa were there, and the place is just insane.
Beautiful country.
Yeah, and the place we stayed at has something we're not used to, but it had full staff. So every bungalow, so my kids had their own bungalow.
Okay.
We had our own, and it comes with a staff of 2 people. So they do your laundry every day. They clean your room every day. They bring you drinks and food and fruit, and
Wow.
it's full 5-star.
How long were you guys over there?
We were there for 16 days.
Okay.
So the other groups, we had 2 groups of 7 days, and so we stayed for both just to make sure the event went well. And they got we gave everybody some swag and stuff like that. So just making sure that we had helicopter rides scheduled and went to orphanages. We had thousands of dollars donated.
That's awesome.
So we went shopping, went to the stores and bought just grocery carts full of
for this orphanage and
toiletries and stuff like that, and then went, and so that was good for my kids to understand how blessed we are and to help so just a good experience, man. It was good. We're going next year, so we got them all set up for next year as well.
Sweet.
But anyway, I digress. So 7 kids.
Yep.
And how long were you married? How long?
18 years.
See, that's what surprises me, and I'm just going to be open and honest, let's just dive into it. But because it makes me nervous. It does, I actually had a good friend of mine just go through a divorce. I was with him in Hawaii 2 years ago, and I spent 2 weeks with him. And I was there when he would call his wife and check in, and I remember driving every morning. We drove over to this place to hunt. We were bow hunting goats on Big Island, and he would call her on the car radio, and he'd just check in with her, and he got home and called me like 3 days later and says, "Hey, she's leaving me." And I'm like, "What? You guys were good 3 days ago." And obviously I don't have all the details, and they wasn't. Right. And he had some, he was drinking a lot. But watching him go through that and that's the first one that I've ever been like there from all of it and talking to him and trying to help him through it best I could, because I've never gone through that. But it was a good lesson for me because, seeing some of the things that she was missing, I wasn't doing either. She wanted, like, he would call and I would call my wife, but I would just kind of go through the motions. "Hey, what's up? How's it going? Good to talk to you. Talk to you later. Bye." And one thing that was weird with that was the next year I went back. It was 2 years later. So this was 3 years ago. Last year we went back, and he was dating a new girl, and his son was there, his older boy. And he would leave and go call this girl and talk to her, and was buying her like gifts. And I'm talking to the son, and the son's like frustrated. And I says, "What's up, man? You know, are you okay?" And he says, "If he would have done this with my mom, they probably would have still been married." And I'm like, whoa, you know, and I went and bought something for Gina, and I called her, and it wasn't, "Hey, what's up? Got to go by." It was, "How are you doing? What's your day?" You know, it was it's been a very good thing for me to kind of see, because I think and I'll say not we, I get, not complacent, but also you take them for granted.
Yeah.
And, so that was my kind of experience with that, you know, and I always think, you know, none of us, I've been married, it'll be 18 years this year, in a month, a month. And it can happen at any time.
Yep,
you know,
anybody.
That's what's crazy, is it can happen. I have several friends going through this right now. And it scares me, right? You know, so yeah.
So just jumping right into it, kind of my take on the whole thing.
Yes.
Because there's been a lot of time to ponder and think and like really.
How long's it been?
So we separated in March of 2023.
Okay.
And then our divorce was final just like 5 or 6 months ago. So it was about, and of course, whenever anybody experiences these huge changes, there's a moment when you hit rock bottom, and you realize, what am I going to do with my life? What have I done wrong? All that kind of stuff. And you start to, you don't want to stay in that depressed state because it just feels terrible. Right. And so this is something that I'm learning. I can't even say that I've learned, but something that I'm learning is that, like, and I would bet if I asked this question to every man ever in the whole world since the existence of time, they would all say the same thing. And that is, all of us boys, we grow up with maybe a present father, maybe not. But at some point, a father figure, when we fall down as a child, our father says to us, "Get up, it's fine, move on." If we're in a race and we skin our knee, or if we, whatever, our father says, "Get up." When you have your little daughter, even, it's not going to feel the same way. When she falls down, naturally, you're going to coddle her. I promise you that. It's going to be different than how you treat your boys. Yeah. Even subconsciously. So your boys are going to grow up. This is not anything negative that you're doing. It's just what's happening, right? So boys are going to grow up thinking that they've got to be tough. They've got to show no pain. And so what happens is, subconsciously, we develop this coping mechanism. Yeah, coping mechanism. This inability to share our feelings, because we think that by sharing pain or weakness, then we are weak. And men don't want to feel weak, right? They want to feel strong for their families, for their wives, for their children, for their coworkers. We don't want to be ever labeled as weak. And what happens is, we keep it in, and then there's two common ways that men will express themselves. One of them is through silence, because they don't know how to express themselves, and the other one is they get angry. They just
on both of those.
It's built up too long. It's built up too long, so we yell. Yeah. We get mad. We men get violent. Or if we're healthy, then we learn to speak, and we learn to speak kindly, and we learn to express our emotions. Well, that was something I didn't know how to do. I went silent. And as I've thought deep upon, like, why I went silent, I'll go on that in just a minute. In our silence, men will turn to addictions to numb the pain. Right? So, like, let's just say there's a man out there who's struggling to provide for his family, and he's not feeling like he's an adequate provider. Well, he might come home and drink every night to drown his sorrows away, to numb his pain, because he's not good enough, or he feels not good enough.
Yeah, to
or,
change reality.
Yep, to change reality. If we have difficulty discussing these hard conversations with our wives, sometimes we'll go silent, sometimes we'll yell, sometimes we'll do these different ways of expressing ourselves that aren't healthy. And so we are hurting our women in the process. So I read this quote. I'm not going to quote it exactly. It's a poem by Whitney Hansen, and she says that I may not be able to, this is not quoted exactly,
You're right.
bring you the sun, but I can sit with you in the rain. And I love that because men, we have a hard time sitting with our wives in their rain when they're being rained on. And I think I finally figured out the reason why. It's because we haven't sat in our own pain. So how are we going to feel another's pain when we won't even accept our own? So here I am. I had this thought the other day about this painting I want to have done where, and it maybe me putting it on the air, someone's going to steal my idea, but who cares, right?
Yeah.
But there's this man inside of a safe shelter, and he's looking out at this woman. That woman could represent his wife. The woman could represent his daughter, his mom, some female figure. And she's being rained on, and she's just in a lot of pain. Maybe she's just got divorced. Maybe she lost a child. Maybe she's got cancer. Maybe she's in pain, invisible pain. And he's looking out at her, wanting to go to her, but he is afraid to because every time that he's tried to in the past, she has said, don't try to fix it, right? Like, I bet you every woman could raise their hand and be like, yes, my husband always wants to fix the problem, right? But no woman wants that. She just wants to be heard. She just wants to be understood. She just wants him to sit with her in the rain. But he's scared as hell to sit with her in the rain because he knows that if he leaves his safe shelter to her, he's going to get rained on. But that's just the process he needs to have happen to him. He needs to get rained on, and he needs to allow it to feel the rain, to feel the pain, and to internalize it and cope with it in a positive, healthy way so that he can go sit with her in her challenges, in her trials. That's something I didn't do.
Yeah.
You know, that's something I didn't know how to do. And can I say that I know how to do it now? No, because I'm not married.
Right.
I
haven't tried it yet.
I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah.
I'm practicing in other ways, and this is the part where I think if there was anything that I would want to share on the air, it would be moving out that first night. I got on my knees.
She wanted the divorce, right? Or
well,
did you?
No, we made a decision together to separate because things were rough, and we came home and told our children that Dad was moving out. And watching 7 kids cry, as a father, you've let your wife down, you've let your children down. And so I remember going home that night to the trailer. I moved out to a trailer and got down on my knees and asked God, like, okay, God, I'm broken now. Like all the times I've pled to you before, there was reasons why I wasn't willing to let it all go.
Right.
Because of justification, because of pride, because of all these things. And I said, I'm broken, I need help.
Right.
And he said, he came to me in this most beautiful feeling. He said, I need you, Jesse, to write in your journal. And I was like, what? Like that was the answer to like my marriage failing, to write in a journal? Because I'd tried to go to church more. I'd tried to pray more. I'd tried to do all these, to serve people more. None of it worked. And I realize now why is because I was still running from all these emotions. I'm not working. Yes, I was out running from all of these emotions. I was running from, my inabilities to have conversation. I went silent. And so God said, write in your journal. And since that day, and I don't say this to boast. This is something I want to share with the men of the world that, hey, if you're struggling speaking kindly, you yell too much, or you're struggling speaking at all, start keeping a journal of every emotion that you have, even the bad ones, the terrible ones, the temptation ones, the evil, the good, every fear, all of it, and start writing it out. And what happens is as you start writing, you start to like analyze, yep, and it slows you down. And so then you start to be able to form what you're feeling, and then you can express it to other people in a positive way, right? And so there's an app, and I'm not even promoting this per se as far as, because it doesn't have to be that one, but like Day One is the app that I use, and it's beautiful because what man, I mean, there are those men in the world, and I salute them, but was going to sit down and write in our busy world that we live in.
Right.
So I pull it out, and I just voice recognition onto my...
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, let's step away from this conversation real quick, and I wanted to talk to you about a few things we have going on with M42 Adventures. First off, I wanted to just mention the Costa Rica surfing experience for the spring of next year. That's our first experience coming up for 2025, and it is sold out. So I want to just thank everybody who is supporting us, pulling out their wallets, signing up for these experiences, going outside their comfort zones. We promise we're going to take very good care of you, and it's going to be amazing. So Costa Rica 2025, the spring experience is sold out. We do have Africa Live, so you can go to m42adventures.com/Africa Hunt and find out more about that. We have 8 spots left for hunters, and then we have some non-hunters left. I think there's 12 of those left, something like that. But they are going quick. We have a lot of people that are, making plans and making sure the dates work. It's August 7th to the 14th, 2025. And I went last year. It was absolutely amazing. Took my entire family, my pregnant wife. Everybody asked, is it safe? I took my pregnant wife. We actually did a baby reveal there, gender reveal, and my 3 little boys. So absolutely safe, never felt in danger. Beautiful, wonderful experience. And you don't have to hunt. My wife went. She didn't hunt at all. And she absolutely loved it. So with the helicopter flights and the humanitarian projects and some of the things we've set up, is an absolute beautiful experience. So checking out that, and then also the Genesis. That's our online community. A lot of people don't realize we have an online community, and what we're doing in there is we're having conversations. We have mentors with different channels, so firearms, motorcycles. But we also are working on our 4 core. So that's your fitness, your faith, your finances, and your family, your relationships. And with those being in order, then you can, if you're in shape, you can go on experiences. If you have good relationships, you're usually happy and more positive. If your finances are in order, you can afford them. So we work on those 4 pillars, we call them. And then with, one-on-one coaching, mentors, and helping you get whatever you're struggling with, all of us, including me, what we're struggling with, you can sign up and get some support there. And so go check that out. The Genesis, it's free till the end of the year. We're doing giveaways. We got a lot of cool things going on in there. So we've got 54 members. It's been open for 6 weeks. We've had a great response. And again, thank you for following, liking, sharing, keep supporting us. And let's get back to this conversation.
Onto my app, and I just start talking because it's text. I just voice text into it, and I'll write everything that I'm feeling. I'll just set it on my lap while I'm driving. I'll just do it while I'm eating breakfast, and I'll just start talking about how I'm feeling. And so, and then on this app, you can print it out and do a book, and that's not like I'm doing it to share with the world, but my posterity will one day read it,
right? And
they'll see oh, this is how grandpa or great grandpa dealt with things, and so that's the way that I feel like us men can show up better, is by recognizing that, hey, we don't have all the right answers. And also, we make mistakes and we do wrongdoings, and we need help, and we need to humble ourselves enough to where we recognize that, hey, if we don't show up for our children, for our wives, for our posterity, it's going to continue a pattern in our children.
Yeah, right.
Because children experience the trauma from their parents being divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reality is that all 7 of our children are going to have to make a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Do they want to do things the way that their mom and dad did them? Or do they want to do them in a new way that we're both trying to figure out that's better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we have to be open with our children about, and which is a beautiful thing too.
Right.
It's sad that what happened, but it's also a beautiful thing that, because we live in a hard world, and our children, all of our children, you're 4, our 7, they're going to face crap.
Right.
Well, one more thing I just want to put in there is that, so, what I did to cope was I turned to addiction. And because addiction numbs us out, just like the guy, you know, like I mentioned, drinking alcohol or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Addiction will numb us out so we don't have to feel the pain of what we're experiencing. But the addiction is never the problem.
Right.
You ask a man who's addicted to alcohol how many times he's tried to quit and what he's done to try to quit and how many times he's went to the 12-step program and how many times he's done this. And almost all of them will tell you that none of it works. And it's because there's something at the root of it. The reason why he's drinking is at the root of it.
Mm-hmm.
Was he abused as a child? Did he get divorced? Does he have cancer? Does he have struggles communicating? Did he get fired from his job? Why is he drinking?
Yeah.
You know? And so once we can figure that out, why we are turning to addiction, then we can solve the problem. And so there's a lot there, a lot of content there that we could have a lot of discussion about. And I'm open to have, any questions that you have. But the last part too is when a man or woman lives in the shame of the mistakes that they're making, it's natural for that person to feel worthless, like that because of your mistakes that you're worth nothing,
mm-hmm.
that no one could love you ever because you made a mistake. And that's Satan. That's the evil one whispering for all of you out there who, God-fearing people. Like, that's the evil one telling you that you're worthless. But when we step back and realize, if we believe in God or some higher being or whatever it is that people believe in, and realize that, hey, we have worth to this God who created us. It doesn't matter what we've done. Like, your daughter even will one day make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to love her less
mm-hmm.
because she made a mistake. You made yours, I made mine. Everybody makes.
Well, and your kids.
Yeah.
Your kids love you.
Yep.
You made a mistake. Mommy and daddy, they've run into some trouble, but I guarantee that you're still their hero.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing to remember. Like you said, I remember when I lost everything in the recession, that's the only thing I can kind of compare this to, because I felt that same way of just, I remember going to Gina saying, "Are you going to leave me?"
Yeah.
She's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "I failed."
Yeah.
I literally asked her, and she's like, "I didn't marry you for money. I married you because I love you.
Yeah.
And we'll just start over." And I'm like, "Oh, that's nice." But you look around in those times of that, and you look around at the people who are in your corner, and it's like, wow, these are my people. These are the ones who, you just are so grateful for,
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, probably more people would be in that if you opened up to them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people didn't. I remember going down to San Diego and hanging out with my friends, and I was just down and broke, and
Mm-hmm.
they're like, "How's things going?" I'm like, I ran into a rough patch, sold my house, sold my cars. I didn't sell my house. The bank took it. I didn't sell my cars. They were repossessed, but I put on that facade for years. And then I remember finally talking to them, and I'm like, "Hey guys, I don't know that I've been lying, but I've been misleading."
Yeah.
I was annihilated, and I
Lost
didn't
everything.
dare tell you guys because I thought you would judge me. And they're like, "Dude, I'm glad you told us because we lost everything too, and we were putting on a show, And it's like, we're all doing the same thing. We're all trying to, and it's like, we could have had some really good, beneficial, deep conversations had we known that we were both going through that. But both of us were just smiling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Life's tough, but we'll figure it out. And then I drive home, and I'm like, oh my heck, my life is over, and so I think that's another good thing that I want to touch on is it's not, and that's where I think where I am inspired by people like you and some of my other friends. I have some friends who, like I said, there's a left and a right, and some go either further down the bottle or even to suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Or some of these other decisions, that they amplify the bad. And then you have the others who take the right road, pun intended. And they get in better shape and they quit drinking. And, and I always think, when I talked to my buddy, I told him that. I says, "Listen, man, you're in the depths of it. I know that I can't even begin to feel what you're feeling. You got 4 or 5 kids. married 20 something years,
Mm-hmm.
out of the blue, he didn't want it. And I says, so you can go further down the bottle or you can go the other way. And I says, but if you go down the bottle, this is just going to delay.
Mm-hmm.
You're just numbing it.
Yeah.
But if you take the right and you pull the Band-Aid off and two things are going to happen. One, you're going to be on the path to future happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And two, when you run into that person, there's going to be another girl.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be another person. And you want the one that's going to want this guy, not that guy.
Right.
You want the one that says, wow, this guy's, a contributing member of society.
Mm-hmm.
And not perfect by any means. He's
Right,
still
no.
not, and he's still working on it. But I think that's something that I admire with you. And because I
Thank
can't
you.
imagine, I can, and I think I can. It's one of those things where I remember I was engaged and I ended up calling it off. And I didn't want to not get married. I just didn't want to break up with her.
Mm-hmm.
Still loved her. And it was like, I don't even know baseball references, but it was like seventh inning or
Okay.
I don't know,
Ninth
late.
inning, yeah. Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't know how many innings there are,
Yeah.
But it was late in the game. Invitations were out. She had the dress, and we broke up. And I remember waking up in the morning, and I was like, "Oh, I feel pretty good," like I don't feel sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
And then I would think about her, and I would get sick. I would like feel it come over my body, and it would be there the entire day, just physically sick.
Yeah.
And then I'd go to sleep, and I'd wake up, and for like 2 or 3 minutes in the morning, I'd be like, "Oh, I feel pretty good. Oh yeah, that happened. Oh." And it's one of those things where you can't experience that heartache until you're there. But I just admire people who, like you said, I tell my kids all the time, my job is to not, we all want to be happy. We all want to be happy all the time, but that's not reality.
Nope.
It's actually less likely that you're going to be happy all the time. And so I tell them, and when my grandpa died and I was devastated and I was just inconsolable for months, my kids are like, are you okay, Dad? And I'm like, no, I'm not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And my world will never be the same. The earth will never be the same place. It has changed. Without Grandpa, it is not the same place. And I'm going to be sad. And it's okay to be sad. That's how much I loved him. This is part of life. I can go drink a bottle of, vodka and I'll forget about it and that will help that day.
Yeah.
But we're just going to sit here and we're going to be sad until it's not. And it took months.
Yeah.
And I think that's good for kids to understand and all of us, even adults, where if you're going through something hard, like you said, medical, financial, marital, all these different things, you're justified probably to be sad.
Yeah.
And you're justified to have, these thoughts and all these different things. But at the same time, really try to find, and like you said, I think that was a very good point, where what's your reason, and hopefully you can find it like in your kids. If you have kids, that would be probably mine if I was going through a divorce is, it's like I want to check out. I want to be, numb, but these little kids need me, and I'm their role model, and how I handle this, I can either compound their pain, or I can help alleviate it through, trying to come out of this better.
Well, and I love that. I think we do our kids a service instead of a disservice by letting them see that we are vulnerable and that we actually feel pain.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a little section in my notes where anytime I have some sort of inspiration at all, I put in there, share with the kid. It's called Share with the Kids. And then I just put little bullet points of whatever I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever it's my turn to have, custody with them or be with the children, like that's the first thing I do is I pull up that and we go over it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the cute part. So every single time now, like it's like without fail,
Mm-hmm.
my kids get in the car, whether I pick them up from school or I pick them up at their mom's house or whatever, the first thing they asked of me, especially Eleanor, she says, "Daddy, are you going to cry?" And I say, depending on what I've been learning and what I'm going to share, I say, yeah, this one's going to be a hard one. And she says, sad tears or happy tears?
Oh, yeah.
And it's so cute because then I get to she wants to know a little bit before. And all of the children show it in different ways, but like she is one who, when I start getting teary-eyed about something I'm sharing, a pain that I'm feeling, a mistake that I've made that I'm talking to them about, she comes and hugs me and holds me the whole time. Like that's how she expresses it.
Yeah.
And all the other children show love too in different ways. But I've realized that my relationship has deepened with them because of that very thing. Showing them that their dad does not have it all figured out.
Yeah.
That their dad makes mistakes. That their dad can be vulnerable with his emotions and not be afraid to cry in front of them, whether they be good tears or happy tears, or bad or happy tears. And now it's teaching them and giving them permission to do the same. Because I don't want my boys and girls to feel like they can't express themselves or they have to hold it in because they're scared, they don't know how to share it, or they feel like maybe it'll come out in anger because they've bottled it up too long, And so I don't know. I just think that, fathers of the world, if we be more vulnerable with our children, I mean, they don't need to know every single detail of everything.
For sure.
But to the level of their understanding.
At certain ages. Yep. The 18-year-old ones, you can probably say, hey, this is a little bit more what I'm going through and a little bit deeper. The 7-8-year-old, it's like shield it, because their brain can't comprehend some of those things, And so I think that's absolutely right. Yeah. The thing I hear you saying the most, so, I always want to try to, what would help the listeners the most. And for me, listening to you, the number one thing is communication.
Yeah.
That's something that I lack in. When me and Gina get in a fight, I go silent.
Yeah.
I just don't. And it's funny because I go silent because I don't want to get angry.
Right. Right. Yeah.
That's it. And I'm like, if you keep talking to me, I'm going to get angry. And it's like, and what an immature thing.
And could there not be a better way in the middle of all that?
100%. Yeah. It's like, if you keep talking, if we keep communicating, I'm going to get mad. And it's like, well, there you go. That's, 101, what you're saying of the problem, and it's like the communication should diffuse the anger. Yeah. But because I told Gina this, I remember we were in France, in a little village, and I says, hey, we had gotten in a good fight. And I says, I think I've got it figured out why a lot of people get divorced. And she says, oh yeah, what's that? And I says, when we used to fight in the beginning, when you're married, like say 0 to 3 years, when you get in a fight, it takes longer because you don't have all these expectations, So, we're new, we're figuring it out. I start getting angry. You're not sure what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do. And we kind of build up. And so I says, say a fight is a 1 to a 10. 10 is like a knockdown, drag out, and 1 is just, disagreement. I says, I think when the first few years you go from like a 1 to a 3, and then you go from like a 3 to a 5, and then you go from a 5 to a 7. Because when we got in that fight in France, our fight went like, I don't even know what it was over. You never do really, but it was over something. And we started at like a 7. Yeah. And then I start to say something and she says, oh, I know what you're going to say. It's all my fault. And, why don't you go break something? Because you're going to break something next. And I'm like, wow, we just went, I can't even fight with you anymore because it's starting at a 7. And we've got to, I think the key to a marriage is this is why it's, I don't want to say impossible, but very difficult, is to bring it back to a 1 in the beginning. There's so much water under the bridge that to try to back that back up and me to say, no, let's fight a new way. I think that's what I think, and I don't know the answer to it, but I think if there was a way to, instead of getting in a fight with your wife and it starts out as a 7 and goes to an 11, how do you reset? And you genuinely have to want to reset, and I think, like you said, it's communication. Yeah, it's communication. I remember when we and Gina, So we lost everything in the recession, dead broke. And I read a book. It was actually Dave Ramsey's book. And it said, go to your spouse. And instead of saying, you're doing this, you're spending all the money, you're bad with money, go to it and say, what can we do to do better? I'm doing this. I shouldn't, like bring it into questions, not statements. And I remember sitting down with Gina because we had always just had our money problems. And I said, listen, what do we want? What are your life? This is how I started. I said, what are your life dreams? What do you want? And she's like, what do you mean? I says, what do you want to do? We're starting over. We've lost everything. We're like back to -5 because we were in debt.
Yeah.
What are we rebuilding to? What is the end goal? And she's like, I don't know. I've never really thought about it. I want kids. I'd like a house someday. She's like, I don't know. I've never really questioned it.
Yeah.
And I says, well, I'd like to travel the world. And she's like, that sounds good. That sounds fun. And I says, okay, so do you agree that would be cool as if we didn't have to work anymore and we could go travel the world? And she's like, yeah, that sounds great. And I said, okay, for us to do that, this is how we would have to live.
Yeah.
We got to cut our expenses. We can't go out to eat dinner. We can't get your nails done. I can't go hunting. We got to sacrifice for this many years if we buy. And I wrote out the plan and I literally wrote it out. And she says, yeah, I'll do that. I'm in. And I remember going up to my grandpa and I'm like, it worked. Like we didn't fight. We have a plan that we both want to do and we're going to do it. And she did it and I did it. Like we did not waver for years. But I think that's something just thinking out loud to where the conversation I probably need to have for me myself is, hey babe, what do you want our marriage to be in the next 10 years? Because not that we've won the financial game, but that's not as much of a concern. But we still fight. We still have our issues as a married couple. And it's like, I'm just trying to think of how we can help people out there to where if you're going through some of these struggles, sit down with your spouse. And like you're saying, before it, all the guys that I know, and I don't know about you, but the other 3 that I'm thinking of were blindsided by their divorce. They knew they had some problems. They knew they had some issues, but not to they all had children. Some of them very young children. They had investments together, rental properties. I mean, they just thought, they did not think divorce was on the table. And, that's one thing that I wonder, and I don't know, this would be a good thing for a woman to come on here and talk about it, but it seems like when a woman's done, they're done. When they tell you they're done, they've been thinking about it for a lot longer than they say. It's like, hey, I'm over this. But for me, that's something for me is looking for some of the signs, some of the, which I don't know that I know what they are. But was there anything for you going back? Do you think you could have saved it? If you had known a few things for us out there that are, and this is just kind of, and I know it's public and so, but sometimes it's better the way it went, for the individuals, I don't know. So
Well,
there's a lot there.
okay. Yeah. I'll say what I'm feeling right
Okay.
now. When my ex-wife came to me and said, this is something that I'm noticing that is happening, your behavior, your whatever, and it's hurting our family. So there's something that happens in that very moment, a choice that a man has to make. And he either makes the choice of being proud and being like, well, you're full of flaws too.
That's who I would be.
Or he says, she's actually trying to help me be a better man and be a better father, maybe there's something to this. I need to think introspectively and think inside what is going on here. Yeah, write my journal and find out why is she saying this, and actually listen. And so, if a man can't do that, now, if he can't take constructive criticism, then he's never going to change.
Yeah.
Now, another problem of mine that I did for our entire marriage was if there was something that she did that was hurtful, I never said anything. So how would she know that there was something that hurt me if I didn't tell her? And I've asked my kids this, whose fault is that? Really, whose fault is that?
Yeah.
That's my
100%.
fault.
Yeah.
She can never change something that she did that hurt me if I never told her about it. That's my fault. So coming to those two realizations that like if I want my marriage to work, I've got to speak kindly about the things that I think that are hurting me or that are helping me and be able to have discussion, open discussion about it without going silent and without getting angry. Because no woman wants to discuss with any man who's angry, and she can't discuss with a man who's silent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have to humble ourselves enough to realize, hey, I'm not perfect. Like, I mean, why would we even act like we got it all figured out when we know deep inside we don't?
You do, yeah.
We don't
It's
got it all
pride.
figured out.
It's
pride.
absolutely pride.
And so if I was to say something to all the people out there who are, fighting for their marriages, it would be, okay, men and women too, for different reasons. If you want to have a happy, connecting relationship instead of just existing with this person that you're with, you have to see each other and be vulnerable with each other, and you have to speak. And I didn't do that.
Speak and listen.
You have to speak and listen. You have to listen to be able to understand, not listen to be able to solve. Because if I'm listening because I want to solve the problem that whatever it is she's coming to me with her hurt, and I want to try to solve it rather than listen to feel, listen to like understand, then I'm going to go about it in the wrong way. She never wants that anyways. She just wants to, so that's kind of like.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know my wife, she has a women's community, and she says that she has a lot of women in there who, she doesn't get into specifics, obviously, but she just says, I have these women who are frustrated with their husbands, and I tell them, and it's like, and they wait until they're just fed up and done. And it's like, he probably would have changed if he would have known that was a deal breaker, So I think like you're saying is we need to speak up. And I've also noticed timing is a huge one. If you're tense and just get home from work and she's tired and you're like, hey, let's talk about how you're, how you need to improve yourself. But if you're out to dinner and it's light and you let them know that it's love and you want your marriage to be stronger and you have genuine, love in your heart, it's like, hey, listen, I think if we could work on a couple things. And then, like I said, that's why I brought up the money one. Instead of saying, you're doing this, Gina, you're wrong, it's start the conversation with, hey, what could I do this week to make our marriage better? Give me one thing.
Yeah.
And I'll work on it. And don't even have something to come back at. Don't even play a game. Don't even be like, okay, well, you gave me your one. Now I want to tell you this. You hear that all the time. If you work, and you're saying it, saying it. Work on yourself and your marriage will probably be better. I think naturally, and naturally, if you make yourself, try to be a better husband, it's going to bleed over into a better marriage. And then usually the way people are, most humans, is if you give, they give back. How many times have you, I pay for somebody behind me in the drive-through and then they pay for the person behind them.
Yeah.
If you went to your wife and said, I want to be a better husband, I want to just make you happier. Well, they're going to sit there the next morning and think, well, crap, I better work on some of my stuff too, I have a buddy who, I have one buddy who bought his wife like an exercise bike and she like threw it at him for Christmas. And I have another buddy who's like, yeah, dude, I, thought me and my wife were getting unhealthy. So I just started working out. I'm like, I'm going to work on me. I can't change her.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start working out. And he says, and then she did. She's like, what are you up to? And he's like, I just want to be healthier. I want to be more attractive to you.
Yeah.
Never said anything about her.
Never tried to push it on her. Yeah.
And pretty soon she's like, well, I want to go to the gym with you. I want to be attractive, and it's like, I think you can, and I'm talking to myself. Right. I'm not talking to others, I'm just trying to take notes and what I can do to strengthen my marriage. And so, man, I could talk to you all day long. I sincerely appreciate you coming on. I think it was valuable. What do you think, Ricky? You're married.
Dude, I'm over here crying like a baby.
Yeah. It's cool, man. I got emotional, when you're talking about your kids, because, it's hard, man. Marriage is tough. Raising kids is tough. I think that's one of the hardest things for me, is I discipline my kids this way. And then you're like, man, am I doing this right? And, there's no manuals. We're all doing the best we can, I believe sincerely. But man, if we can get I always tell people, talking to people that have been there and done that is key.
Well, I think one more element too that I think would be very helpful to myself and everybody else out there is that when we talk to our children about their pain, so my 7 children are in pain. I'm not going to pretend that they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And I can go through life and just like almost pretend like it doesn't exist, like they're going to be fine, they're going to figure it out themselves. Or I can ask them specific questions, like not just like, how are you doing today? Because what are they going to say? Fine, right? That's what we all say.
Mm-hmm.
But how are you feeling about your parents being divorced? Mm-hmm. Those are the kinds of questions that I'm asking them now.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about this, and this specifics? And then it gives them room and permission to open up and talk about it. Mm. And so I think asking the right questions to our children and to our spouses and to, anybody that we want to have a better relationship with. How are you feeling about our relationship right now?
Yeah.
Gina, how are you feeling about me right now?
How can she get mad at that?
Yeah.
That's an open-ended question of sincerity and love that, and I think that's it. I tell people all the time, mostly with finances, but it's timing and how you say it mm-hmm. is way more important than what you say, and so I think that's a very good point is again, it all boils down to communication. Mm-hmm. And I know it's uncomfortable. I am as bad as anybody out there listening. I guarantee it, for 18 years, I just like you said, it puts a mirror in front of your face, mm-hmm. And who likes that? We all think we're doing what's right or we wouldn't do it, right? We all think that the decisions we make are, and I know at the end of the day, it's like, oh, I have a temper, I should work on that. But at the same time, I'm stern and my kids won't be pieces of crap because they know there's a line, there's authority. Yeah. You justify it.
Yep.
So you get into this justification mode of, I tell Gina all the time, this is my number one argument, is she'll say, you're controlling, you do this. And I says, Gina, if I wasn't this way, we wouldn't have what we have. We wouldn't be able to travel. My personality and my flaws are actually also my strengths.
Right.
But that is a cop-out to an extent because then it's saying, this is who I am, I can't change, deal with it. Mm-hmm. And I think that all she's looking for is she's saying, I love you, I love who you are, but tweak this. Just tweak it. Mm-hmm. Don't go silent. Communicate a little bit more. I actually sent her a thing the other day because we've been talking a lot about this the last year or so because it seems like divorce is prevalent, mm-hmm. is it's all over. And it has been for a while. I mean, it's nothing new, but we've been talking about it. And I sent her a thing where a guy says, he's interviewing another gentleman. I don't know who they were, just a reel, but he says, what do you think is the problem with marriage? And he says, I think most people go into marriage saying, I want you to make me happy. And I don't want to change. And he says, you can't do that. Obviously you want to try to make people happy, but when you go into a marriage, you're going to change because you're going from a naturally selfish, stage mm-hmm. to a combined mind of this is what we're going to do together. You have to change to do that. You can't play football the same way you play tennis, because it's like tennis is a single sport. It's all about you. You're on a team now. You have to pass the ball. Mm-hmm. You have to defend. You have to. And so it's like, if you don't want to play that way, don't get married. Right. And that was a good lesson for me. And I actually thought of that when you said your quote, you can't bring me the sun, but you can sit with me in the rain. I took that because I'd just seen that video and I took it. I can't make Gina necessarily happy,
right?
But I can be there for her in the rain,
right?
And that's what I think marriage, boils down to.
And then she gets to choose if she's happy or not.
100%.
Because we can never force another person to be happy.
Exactly. It's like, if you want me to marry you to make you happy, that's not how this works. But if you want me to marry you to try to make a beautiful life and beautiful kids and go on this journey together that is a team sport, not a nice sport. And
but how beautiful it is when Gina says to you, can you tweak this a little bit? That is love.
100%.
But because she's not saying I want out.
Why would
she? She's saying this is something that I think that can help us connect more. You know what I mean? And so, but sometimes us men and women do it.
You're trying to change me. That's the way you're trying to change. This is who I am. You're trying to change me. And she's saying, no, I am to an extent, but I'm just trying to soften the edge.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to,
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's a good lesson for me is she's not trying to say, don't be Rick. She's just saying, change the, when you get mad, don't break stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, like let's just tweak it a little bit. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, that's probably a good thing.
Don't put your fist through the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, okay, that is probably something I should tweak. I think when we shut down, it's pride again, like you said, and you're saying, you're trying to change me. You're trying to make me not Rick. And it's like, no, I'm trying to make you a better version of Rick.
Yeah.
And as long as they don't change your fundamental, I have some friends who I don't even recognize because they've changed their personality, and I don't necessarily agree with that. But at the same time, to try to, like you said, that's love. That's her trying to say, this little bit of, different ingredients going to make this, a better recipe.
Yeah.
And as long as they're doing that, there's hope. It's when they say, hey, don't change, I'm out, then I got a bigger problem. So, man, is there anything else you want to say out there? I've got, like I said, I think I went through everything. Why'd you want to come here today to help people? What would you say could have helped prevent divorce? You went through that, communication. What would you tell somebody that's going through it? I mean, just keep fighting the fight, right? I mean, journal.
Yeah, journal. You have a choice. You have a choice to go deeper into, depression or addiction or, pain and really hurt all of the relationships and disconnect from all of them if you continue down that path. Because that's exactly what happened in the marriage is you disconnected.
Yep.
So if you continue doing the same thing you're doing, you're going to disconnect with not just your
insanity. Definition of insanity, like
not just with your children, but with your ex-wife, with your ex-husband, whatever it is. And so there's different ways to do it. Like it's not just going silent or yelling. It's actually learning how to communicate. Keep your voice calm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like men, we need to learn to do this. And so seriously, my biggest thing is journal writing for men. Don't write it out if you don't want to write it out. Just voice text it into an app, and I've printed out 5 books, 400 pages each from this app.
I love it.
And it's there.
Well, and people don't, it's a cliche, but I tell them it's a cliche for a reason. I have a couple mentors, mostly business. They've actually gone into personal now, a lot of them because of our relationship. But, all these high achieving people in the world, they always talk, keep reading books, keep growing, get mentors in whatever you're looking to get better at. Journal. They all of them say journal or meditate 30 minutes a day. All of them.
Yeah.
Why are they saying that if they, they're billionaires, they're, they're successful, and not even that money makes you happy, but they're usually high achievers. They're all these people that are successful, standing out in their different categories say, do this, and like you're saying, people I think, and for me as well, my wife said, there's been times where she's like, we need to go to therapy, and I'm like, I'm not going to therapy. He's going to tell me what to do, like, and then that's again, that pride and whatnot. But I can see for me how, like you're saying, it's not about necessarily just writing in a book. It's putting on, it's, they say you're 7 times more likely to achieve a goal if you write it down.
Yeah.
If you put the pen in your hand and you write it on a piece of paper, you're already 7 times more likely because now it's real.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying. I'm sure you're 7 times more likely to be, healthier mentally if you take your thoughts in your brain. Because if you write them down, you're thinking about them, you're processing them, you can reread them, you can analyze them, and you can say, wow, I just wrote, that I lost my temper driving down the road and had road rage. What's that about?
Yeah.
What's the thing under the thing under the thing? It's like, it's not that some guy in a minivan cut me off and I'm want to kill them. It's I'm not providing for my family, and I'm stressed out, and I'm, you see all these people break on, mostly on TV, sports people or famous people, because they're in the limelight, but you see them fall apart and do something, and they're like, it wasn't that.
Right.
I didn't punch the guy in the basketball game because of that. It's because my dad, I was actually just watching this documentary, he got in a huge fight at a basketball game, NBA player, and he says, it wasn't about him. I wasn't even mad at him. My dad had just passed away, and I was just mad at the world.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think by writing it down and going back, and I think even better, printing it down the road, it's also got to be very healthy to say, right now, or, back then, wow, I was in a dark place. Whoa, look at my thoughts.
Yeah.
And then look at 3 books later, I'm in a better place. Like, you can see the chapters of your life.
Well, there was one more thing that I didn't say that you just brought up that, like, it was a very powerful lesson for me. When God told me, he said, write in a journal, I actually
Push back.
kind of pushed back and said, I can't write in a journal. Because he said, write in your journal everything you're feeling. And I said, I cannot do that. Because my children will read and see that Grandpa made some mistakes. And he's all, write it. And I was like, I can't. I'm too embarrassed. I don't want my posterity to know that I'm a failure or that I've failed in some things, right? And he said, write it. And like, it was a moment where it was like a lot of emotion. I said, okay, fine. And almost like out of anger, fine, I'll write it. And as I started to write, God took it all away. Because he's like, now you're being honest with me. Now you're being honest with yourself. And so that the power of writing has the power to bring more honesty and light to the darkness that we face. Because when we run from stuff, it's all hidden. We don't want people to know what's really going on. But when we write it out, then it becomes real. And so God says, now that you're writing it down and being honest with your emotions, now I will heal you.
Now we can begin.
Yep.
Now, yeah, that gives me cold chills.
It changed
cool.
me.
Yeah,
Like,
that's rad.
every time I'm tempted to do something, every time I'm feeling sad or happy or whatever, I write it. And he either heals me, he takes away the temptation, or he helps me process it. He helps me calm down. It's real.
And that's what'll be, hindsight. That's what'll be the most probably beneficial for your kids. Because like you said, we live in a society where, most of it's all smoke and mirrors. Big houses, big boats, big trucks, all financed. Our marriage is perfect. It's not. And so I think for them to be able to go and say, not, a book written by you or your journal written by you is going to be 1,000 times more powerful for your kids to read than them reading Elon Musk's words.
Right.
Because they're going to say, my daddy, I can see that he fell. He didn't have it figured out. And he fought. And he came out the other side. And if I'm going through that, I can do that too. That's in me.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Cool, man.
Thanks.
I love it, brother. So there you have it. That is my conversation with Jesse Callahan. Just a good person, very emotional. Actually, after we got done recording that, and I wish I would have kept recording or filmed this part, but Ricky, who's in the studio with me now, who runs all my fancy equipment here, he actually went up to Jesse after we turned the cameras and the microphones off and said, hey, man, thank you for coming in here and recording that. He's going through some struggles with his family and some personal stuff. And Ricky got very emotional, started, crying and saying how that helped him and that, that really affected him. And he took some notes from that episode and he actually made some texts, sent some texts during the episode. And, it was a beautiful moment. It was really cool to see. And that's what we're doing here. We are trying to help people and help ourselves, including myself. I went home and hugged my wife tighter, and I'm going to try to be a better husband and learn from, some of the things that Jesse talked about. And so I sincerely appreciate Jesse coming in. I know he's kind of a private person, and this is his first podcast. He came in and it was a beautiful thing. And I think when people can, I tell everybody, get mentors, get coaches, get people who have been there and done that and can kind of guide you away from the landmines, if you will. And not even, and if you do hit a landmine, we all do. We all hit those hard times and how to get through them as well. You know, we're not going to avoid every landmine. And so find those mentors that have stepped on them and tell you that, hey, that, you know, the sun's going to rise again. You know, the you know, flowers will bloom again. Life can get better from, you know, death, you know, divorces, all these different things. So overcome, learn, grow, and that's all we're trying to do, right? We're all just trying to better ourselves. Hopefully you are. And I'm grateful for those who are listening. I'm grateful for people like Jesse that take the time to come out and speak about these things. So hopefully you took something from that episode. Stay tuned for more great episodes. Keep following us on social media. Again, the Genesis is live. Come join us in there if you want one-on-one time with me and other mentors. And we're doing some great things inside our community, a lot more than what you see here on the podcast. That's where we actually, you know, the rubber meets the road. So join us in there. We got giveaways. We got cool stuff. You get first access to live experiences and new gear and all these different things. So there's a lot of perks that come with that membership, and it's free until the end of the year. So thank you for your support. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, get the word out if you enjoyed this podcast and you think it'll help somebody, you know, going through a divorce or maybe, you know, their marriage is in trouble. Share it with them. I actually am going to share this with several people, and I hope that it will help them. And that's why I am here. So thanks for listening, M42 Adventures, and we are off. Have a great weekend. Bye.